Everybody, we'll do our quick intro video and then we'll get cranking.
All right, let's get this show on the road, everybody. Welcome to D-Win. First off, this is a discussion amongst dealers, general managers, service managers, marketing managers. We want a lot of interaction, a lot of Q&A.
So we've got to be out there in the marketplace perpetually sharing the good news about what we've got to offer at our organization.
I mentioned cash flow. That's something that dealerships should start looking at, especially when PPP money starts running out, inventory starts getting tight, top line sales might start deteriorating a little bit. Just plan out your cash flow for 18 weeks and just keep it rolling and make sure there's no surprise down the line.
There's about 9 SKUs in tires that you need to keep in inventory, and you can satisfy 80% of the market. And that is another excuse that dealers, quite frankly, have used forever to not get in the business. You know, they take up too much space. I can't keep all the tires in stock. It's just not true.
We all know that growth is a state of mind, and you know, if you build the value, the growth will be there. But it's not necessarily anymore building the value in the product as much as it is in the process.
I think that's a monster opportunity.
All right, everybody, welcome to D-Win this Thursday. And got a special session today, I think, what women want, especially from car dealers, whether they're buying a car, servicing a car, just trying to get information. We've got 2 special guests with us. I'll introduce them shortly. But first, our usual partners in crime here, our president of J&L Marketing, Jamil Zabaneh, along with the solutionist, Sandy Cerami. We've got experts on our panel today, Shannon, Steitz, and we've got Cathy, Droz. Now, Cathy's had some technical issues, so she's got a black screen up there right now, but hopefully we'll be able to hear her and, most importantly, get her input and feedback from everything as well. So welcome, everybody, and especially to you 2 ladies. Welcome, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. All right. So we'll start with you, Shannon. Just to kind of, before we start, can you give us a little bit of background about who you are, what your experience level is, how long you've been in automotive, and why you're an expert? Why should we be listening, I guess, to you today and helping us do a better job creating a better customer experience for women?
Sure. My background is quite diverse. I actually started as an accountant where I held public and private positions handling SEC filings and Sarbanes-Oxley and all that boring stuff. At the time, I didn't realize how boring it was until I made my way over to marketing and went quote unquote rogue. But my entree into marketing was actually publishing in the luxury lifestyle market. And I always gravitated towards cars. I did a lot of work with the luxury dealers throughout New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and even beyond, and right across to the West Coast, in fact. So then when I started an agency, I said, you know, what do I want to do? Who do I want to work with every day? And I just got so much pleasure out of working with my car contacts and hosted a lot of car events. For example, I brought the first Concours d'Elegance to Trump National Bedminster, which is actually our president's club, where we hosted that event for a couple years, registered privately owned exotics to raise funds for St. Jude. So as a marketing agency, I thought to myself, okay, I'm a car girl, a self-proclaimed car girl. Let's see what we can do in this industry, utilizing my background as an accountant and, you know, also ROI is in my DNA. So stepping into car dealerships, I found that it was a lot of darts just being thrown at the walls. It was also a little behind the times, so to speak, from a marketing standpoint. So for us, we really pride ourselves on data-driven solutions. So I want to see the retention database. I want to comb through a CRM before I start making recommendations and not just throw those darts. And no matter what we do, I make it a point if something doesn't work, because not everything is going to work 100% of the time. I want to know it before my client knows it and quickly pivot and change so that it will work. At the end of the day, like I said, we're very ROI driven. We calculate ROI for our clients every single month, whether our client wants it, values it or not. Not all do. But again, I value it, and that's the premise under which we work and operate.
Well, whether a dealer looks at it or not, you've got to track it for your own personal marketing reasons, just so you can make it the improvements necessary to keep the clients.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and a lot of times they're paying us as marketers anyways that's our job, right? And so they may want to see the numbers, but some just want the results. So that's good to know. All right, Cathy, same question to you. Like, what is your background, your history in automotive? What brought you in? And then we'll get started on our show.
Yes, and Scott, hopefully you can hear me clearly.
Yep.
Good. My background, different than Shannon's, is have a high school education, did not go into any book learning in college, went right off to work. I lived in New York. At age 17, I started working in New York City, and I worked for a very large female-based company, Avon Products on Fifth Avenue. That was my first introduction to what women want. And a quick history story in that, the gentleman who founded in the 1800s, who founded Avon, was an encyclopedia salesman. He would go door to door, and mostly the women were home, and they wouldn't let him in, and they didn't want to listen. So he decided to put perfume or cologne into small bottles, bring them to the front door, and entice the women with giving them cologne or perfume, and he would then be able to come in and try and sell them encyclopedias. He found the women liked the perfume more than the selling of the encyclopedias. So he developed Avon Products, which again empowered women now to go door to door or to have a business of their own. So he was an excellent example for me, but I learned everything kind of the hard way, again, with the no education, which really did not stop me. I went from there to getting involved in businesses or helping people, such as my brother, my father. But the most important thing was learning how to buy cars. I started at age 10 with my dad, who we would buy a new car every year. So I would go with him and learn little by little, and Dad would keep me in the car and say, don't talk, just listen. So I learned early on.
Hold on, Cathy. I got to ask you. I got to ask you a question. How would does that type of stuff work today? Does that comment work today, especially with our topic?
No, and it didn't work with me, obviously. But so this very shy girl, coming from Catholic school in my saddle shoes, would go with Dad and just kind of listen. And everything from I can honestly say I learned at a very young age what a title was and insurance and how to negotiate. But the most important thing was at age 17, I went in by myself and bought the vehicle, and then Dad just came in and signed the check.
Nice.
So the dealership people said, I can't believe how young a person, they never said because I was a woman. From there, I took that. I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years, went to school at night, took a couple courses, and from there, I just pushed along, did some modeling, hard to believe, I know, with not being able to see me, thank goodness, and some acting. So it's been a great ride, which has brought me, and I don't want to go on and on, but my background is, boots to the ground and learning that way. I do want to say one thing, and Sandy, I don't know if you had it, yes, Sandy, I don't know if you had a chance to read the book, but the bottom line was my father taught me something interesting was no matter how you negotiate and make that deal, always make sure that it's a win-win-win for the dealer, the salesperson, and for you, the consumer. He always asks the salesman at the end, is there money in this for you? Are you bringing money home to your family? And my father made relationships with those salespeople for years, Christmas cards and gifts. So, I did learn quite a bit from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cathy, I did pick that up in the book. I love the fact that there was that level of empathy for you, that experience that you had. You had the level of empathy for the sales professional. And I think very often I wrote a piece a few months back about the smartest way to go about purchasing a vehicle, whether it was online or the traditional way. And one of the things that I noted was that, you have to go out and look for an opportunity to do business with somebody and have fun. Right? Not go in with a chip on your shoulder or use your previous experience to prejudice your perspective on who you're sitting across from. Give people the opportunity to be a human being, give them an opportunity to give you the kind of experience that you're looking for and earn a reasonable income as a result of it. I love that piece of the book, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
And much more.
Thank you.
All right. So this is a special episode. So today I'm not in my office. I'm actually down at the beach. Oh, there you go. I'm down here in Florida on fall break. So a lot of people know me as SJ 24/7. And just so for the people that are watching, I want this to be, this is a perfect example of what that means, Sandy.
35. I was told 35.
No,
SJ 35. I think we got to have Jamil clarify SJ 35. It's what is that, SJ?
I'll answer that, Jamil.
5 days a week?
For the people that refer to me as SJ 35, it's really because it appears as if there's 35 days or 35 hours per day for me, but right. It's only 24/7. Jamil, go ahead. I'll let you answer.
Nope, that's fine. We'll just leave it at that.
Well played, Jamil. Well played. I want to go back to something that Shannon said, and I've heard her use this term before when she was sharing her story previously offline, which she went rogue. And I love that because, going rogue, quite honestly, when we talk about that in today's day and age, could mean a lot of different things. But what you were really talking about, Shannon, was you were getting out of the buttoned up CPA world, going into the marketing world. You got a chance to have some fun. I've been to events that Shannon has produced for dealership clients because we have some overlap in our client base. And I will tell you flat out that she knows how to do it the right way. And the piece that I think is the critical component is that she does gear the environment and the atmosphere to each one of those events so that it does attract not just men but women as well. You do a tremendous job of that. Shannon, talk about what the thought process is going into events like that and why you gear them that way.
For me, it's always been quality, Sandy, and talking about what women want and women in the auto industry. I'm really excited about this conversation. I think it's so timely, first of all, for the month of October, but there's just so much to talk about. It's a really rich topic. And coming from luxury lifestyle and going into marketing or going from accounting to marketing, that's one thing. It's a large enough shift. But I've got to be completely candid. Going into the auto industry is a really big shift because don't think a lot of people didn't say, well, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's part of what we need to talk about today because I never really got that. For me, my enjoyment, my personal enjoyment always came from the auto industry. And, when you think back, even when you and I did the Feed the Frontline initiative, when COVID hit back in March and April, we had plenty of conversations about the stigma attached to the auto industry, but who stepped up, both on a manufacturer level, a dealer level, the auto industry.
Correct.
And, that's one of the many reasons why I gravitated towards this industry. But I think we just need to get word out there about all the positives that this industry has to offer, especially now. Look, kids are in debt from college loans.
Sure.
You can't get jobs. They're furloughed. They have layoffs. I mean, guys, now's the time to start looking at this industry for people who do need to make a career change, but also from a dealership level. I mean, you know better than anyone at this point in time, you have the cream of the crop out there from a recruiting standpoint. So effective recruiting is really key. more now than ever before.
Well, you raise a great point, and we've talked about this on previous DWIN episodes when we talk about recruiting. And there are things that are different when you're recruiting men versus women in the business. They have a different set of, first of all, different set of standards. I can tell you that for sure. Women tend to have a higher expectation in terms of their own performance very often, higher expectation in terms of the overall atmosphere or culture within an organization. And they have a different expectation in terms of how I would say the business is going to fit for them ultimately. And I think that has to mirror the people that are coming in to the dealership to do business with us. I think there's got to be a healthy balance between men and women in terms of who's serving those folks coming through the door, because we do have a healthy mix. I would say that the not overwhelming majority, but majority of the decision makers that come into a showroom floor and make a decision about buying or even servicing a vehicle is very often female driven.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But are the expectations of men and women truly different, or are there more men willing to be a little bit more flexible? Because I think, and that question comes from the standpoint, I think one of the biggest challenges for a dealership in terms of recruiting a higher caliber of talent, and specifically women, is life-work balance. But wouldn't men want that as well?
I would think so, but I was referring more to the expectation for their own performance. I think that they tend to set a higher bar for themselves. They tend to work a little bit differently than men do. And I mean that in a positive way, to be completely honest with you. I see that there's a slight amount of complacency, and I'm speaking from my own experience. In my house, when something needs to get done in the ceramic house, my kids know which parent to go to, I can promise you. And it's not the one on the screen in front of you. All right. It's the lady that makes the house go 100% and get stuff done. And I see that happening at the dealership level too.
Sandy, where do they go for hair advice?
I know that they're not going to Cherokee Parkway, my friend.
All right, so
directions. You don't want to ask me for directions.
That's all right.
I want to get caught up a little bit on the chat, and then I want to ask Cathy a question to get us kind of started on this. So Zach Hirsch had a question, and it was to you, Shannon, in relating back to what you said when you were explaining your background and experience level. He says, Shannon, how do you balance when to pivot, because you pivoting and being good at it? Because when do you pivot? Is it because something's when do you do it? Because when something's not working versus letting the cake bake?
Well, first of all, I don't bake real well. So you don't want me baking anything. In terms of pivoting, I think that's twofold. You're looking at data, but it also comes from experience. Certain things we just do over and over and over again, week after week, month after month. So we know what data, what type of result we should be looking at. And if there's a reason we're not getting that result, for example, is something broken? More times than not, I use my ROI reports to determine when something's broken on the back end of a site, like an inventory link that I'm able to uncover through ROI. Now, that's not what I'm looking for, but that's just a product of the data.
Yeah. So Michael Porro, who's was obviously one of the
my man, Michael Porro, on the world, Louisville.
That's correct.
But I'm going to give him mad props right now, and we'll give a quick shameless plug for Move, Crush, Count, the podcast. I'm now listening to that for the second time, his episode. It was awesome. Absolutely awesome. No more than 50 used cars in stock during a month and delivered almost 200, if I'm not mistaken. Like, spectacular job. So I'm giving him the slow clap.
Yeah. Incredible operator. He makes a statement that I agree with. The majority of my key managers are women: service manager, express service manager, BDC manager, used car buy center, and CFO. Man or woman, we must hire and promote the best person.
Absolutely.
Amen.
So, Cathy, let me ask you this. I've got 3 stores, and for whatever reason, and this is hypothetical because we do a phenomenal job at our stores for customer experience with women. I say that just jokingly so people don't assume we don't. All right, so we have what is the number one rule? In other words, you know what? My goal is I want to create a better experience, customer experience for women at my stores. What is the number one rule that dealers need to follow?
Well, there are several rules, as you say, rules, but part of what I do is that I teach. I don't like the word train because we train dogs and everybody else, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
teach
girl. Yep.
um, how to understand how men and women think and buy differently. So there's a science to it. But most important is that the owner, hypothetically you, is able to hire the right people. And that starts at the top. You've heard it a million times, but there is no doubt. So the perfect example, Scott, would be when a dealer says to me, Cathy, I want to be her certified because I've built it up to be like a JD Power certification. I want to, and I say, okay, well, we're going to go one-on-one because I need you to understand if you don't believe in this and you only want it so you can put a sticker on your door and look like it, we're not going to do business. But it starts with you. So Scott says, I'm in. You've explained to me how we're going to change the culture, but now you need to hire people who have all the qualities that are needed. Empathy, really understand customer service. They don't talk so much. They let the women like to talk. I don't know if you know that, Sandy. Probably no one in your household does.
I'm losing that battle on a daily basis. I was outnumbered at I do, Cathy. Yes.
If you know. So women like to talk. They like to tell their story. When a man doesn't jump in, including, oh yeah, I used to have a home in, Newport Beach, etc. They're listening. And you've heard it a million times, but that is the key. Listen, pick up on something in particular that will serve you as you move further in the deal. Quick example, and certainly I know that, Scott, you get this for sure. In purchasing a vehicle, when I first moved to Arizona from New York, I decided I wanted a Jeep. I went to 3 Jeep dealerships. I negotiated best I could. Each one gave me a different price. And I remember telling my story. The following week, I received in the mail a written note from one of the salesmen at the Jeep dealership. He said, nice to meet you. And he said, I hope your son Jason won his soccer game on Saturday. We bought from them, and he was almost $200 more than the other Jeep dealerships. That is what women want to hear. They also, and I don't know if Shannon agrees with me, but women like to receive a gift. And I don't mean a cheap keychain with your name on it. They like to receive something to know that they've been appreciated. So,
Sandy, we all like diamonds.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the rare gems to come out of your mouth. Absolutely.
But I'll take a great bottle of bourbon as well.
No.
I was thinking
Enough said.
My gift card, but you go, Shannon. Go.
No, but Cathy, I think you're onto something. And I'm going to go way back in the history books here. My dad, God rest him, he started sending a dozen roses to every single customer that we delivered a car to back in the 80s and the 90s. And I will tell you that even to this day, it's 2020. All right, 30 and 40 years later, I still have people that I know that were customers of ours, and I see them out at a restaurant, and they still talk about. You talk about the long tail of an experience like that. They still talk about getting a dozen roses from the dealership as a thank you for purchasing a vehicle with us.
Sandy, you're right on, and I don't think you and I, and all, of course, you know how young all these people are on here, but we can.
Well, it's not Scott. Not Scott.
30 years, we can go back 3 days. With COVID, what I have suggested to dealers, when you deliver those cars, when you bring them back to the family, leave a single rose or a piece of candy. Now in Arizona, that would be a mess, but just a little.
Right.
Right? Okay, smell it.
There's so much burritos washing around on the inside.
That's it. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. In Louisville, I understand that Michael Poro is providing a vintage bourbon with everyone that purchases a new Honda or CPO Honda out of his store. Is that true?
Weller 23. Or, I mean Pappy
Exactly.
23 or Weller 12, depending on what he has in stock.
You know, or Pappy.
Yeah. So, you guys brought up, Cathy, you brought up something, and I'll ask this because you brought it up, and I think talked about it, Cathy. So I'm going to ask Shannon. You brought up when women are talking, actually listening. What a novel concept, and not interrupting or finishing sentences. Is this something that women are like? And I know you don't speak for all, but what are some of the pet peeves when communicating with a dealer that is? We'll start with you, Shannon, then we'll come back to Cathy. What are some of the pet peeves that just irritate you as a woman when talking to a dealer?
Scott, I don't know. I mean, I agree with everything Cathy said. Customer service is key, but when you say listening, to me, that came from Sales 101. Whether it's a man or a woman, you should listen to your customer in any industry, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
amen. Sure.
Maybe in addition to everything that Cathy said, which I'm in total agreement with, I like to take a step back and actually think about and talk about, why does a person choose to even step into that particular dealership? Because for me, in my opinion, I think perception is so relevant here, and that's a deal breaker before they even get into the door sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think, that so much goes into creating a brand and perception, a reputation that could take years, and it's either going to make or break a dealer, in my opinion. So I always think back as a kid being born and raised in New Jersey. Here it's Ray Katina land, and as a child, I still to this day remember Ray Sr.'s commercials. To me, that's phenomenal marketing. Why did I, as a child, remember Ray Katina's commercials? Why? Because he spoke about family. He spoke about his customers being an extension of his family.
Mm-hmm.
So when that customer, to me, when that customer walked in one of Ray Katina's showrooms, right, wrong, or indifferent, they felt like they were making a smart decision due to good marketing.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll second that, because his tagline was, "You take care of your life and your family, and we'll take care of your automotive needs."
Yeah, exactly.
And so that was a question that was going to lead me. So what advice would both of you give? And I'll let you guys kind of bounce back and forth a little bit on this. What advice would you give dealers that are listening, or general managers, service managers, when it comes to, like, for instance, with my own stores, I would want the women in the community to say, this is the dealership that's head and shoulders above all others in terms of treating me the way I want to be treated. Whether it's, first off, it starts online, right? And then once the engagement starts happening, and whether it's texting, emailing, phone call, an in-person visit, whether it's sales or service, what are some of the things dealers can do to get to that level, to where they're recognized community-wide that this is where you want to go, especially if you're female?
It's community penetration. It's supporting your local schools. It's supporting your local police. It's supporting your local hospitals. It's being the good guys in the business. I think that goes a long way. And for my clients, I always encourage them to do community events and support the local community throughout the year and really market that. It's a little bit more difficult, of course, now due to COVID, but a lot of my clients are getting back into that, where they're doing outdoor events. We have a car show this weekend coming up. So I'm happy to see that, because I think it means a lot to the community, and the dealer might lose sight of it, but it's not something, in my opinion, that you should lose sight of. Digital marketing, of course, listen, no one's going to argue the effectiveness and the strength of digital marketing, but to have that community penetration and that strong brand and reputation on top of a good digital marketing strategy is killer.
Yeah. And Cathy, what would you say helps? What can dealers do that just would help get them on a fast track to being branded this way? Branding the way they want to be branded, I should say.
I agree with Shannon. And there is personal branding, obviously, and there is the branding of your dealership. In the Arizona area, we had a gentleman just passed away, Tex Earnhardt.
Oh, yeah.
You know, okay, so you know of Tex. So
yeah, of course.
Tagline was, he was on top of a bull, and it was, you know, buy it Earnhardt, and that ain't no bull.
That's right.
So it is. So the catchphrase is kind of like what you were saying in New Jersey. People start to remember that, and of course, they that was their branding. What I like to see for women, the community involvement, exactly. But I like to study the actual area. So I don't know, Scott, your immediate area in Kentucky, but I did have a dealer come to me and say, my zip code, I'm not bringing women in from my zip code. Can you help me? They're coming from everywhere else, but they're not the demographic that I want. So I put together a Meet the Women of Bell Honda, and took a small little ad in the community paper. Shannon, you know that can go a long way. Community paper, not very, expensive. And I had a night in the service drive where they could meet the women of, and that meant the controller, that meant all women on board. I had vehicles set up, but the test driving was done with me. I went in the car with the women. Salesmen were not allowed near them. We had food, we had prizes. I talked, we had someone from the bank to talk about finance, and we didn't really talk about cars. But it was meeting the women, and the women loved it. You can only imagine. And then,
I think, Cathy, that speaks to a comment that we've got on the screen right now from the one and only MJ, not the guy that dribbled the basketball, but Mark Geron, who one of my favorite guys. And he says it starts with your employees and how you treat them. The staff has to come first. I think that example that you just shared with us is a perfect articulation of that. You know, it's an opportunity to elevate people within the company and put them into the market's eye, if you will, and give people a chance to see the human side of our business. It turns it from a transactional experience into a relational experience when you get the people involved. And so I love what you did. And I love the Meet the Women of Bell Honda tagline. I'm going to steal that from you. I'll give you credit the first 2 times, but as SJ knows, the third time, it's all mine.
Oh, I feel like I'm back east again. Thank you so much.
That's it. That's it.
And Michael Porro gave you a couple thumbs up on that idea as well.
I know he's going to go with it. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Once he hears a good idea, it's up and running quick.
Yeah.
All right. So
I have to say this also, Scott. He did one incredible rendition of the Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight on the tour bus when we were coming back from dinner at the Thoroughbred Farm for the Fourth Box Live event, which was epic, by the way. For those of you that are wondering how the Fourth Box Live went, epic with all capital letters, but one of the most epic moments, Michael Porro in his rendition.
And so for all the people that will be private messaging us asking for that footage of that.
We have the video. We have the video. Absolutely.
It was outstanding, but it never leaves us because what happens in the Fourth Box stays there. But let me get us.
My family and I had a whole thing of popcorn last Friday night. We watched it 3 times.
He was great.
Hey, Scott, let me real quick. I want to tag team that idea by Cathy, and it's really a question for Cathy or Shannon. So we talk a lot about events for women. So a lot of dealerships have tried to do women's clinics as an example. Mm-hmm. So you guys are in so many different dealerships and you work with a lot of different dealerships. And I'll start with you, Shannon. What has been one of the most successful women's clinic that you've seen a dealership put on? Kind of walk us through some of the marketing and how it was put together.
We've done service clinics for women specifically because not everyone has that spouse or, you know, male go-to in terms of servicing their vehicle, and women generally want to know more about their vehicle so they aren't so reliant upon a male, so to speak. They've done very well. I find really more the community events, though, depending on the partner, the community partner, and the topic, and drawing in some women's organizations have always worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because you're opening your doors again. It's not about selling cars that day or that evening, but you're opening your doors. And I've never seen an event like that where somebody didn't return to the dealership, or the dealership didn't sell cars to that organization, whether it be a hospital or, you know, some other type of foundation. The car sales do come in afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, dog rescue events, etc.
I'll tell you, you know, Adam Aarons, who was also at the Fourth Box Live event in Louisville, awesome as always. Like, you know, I could hang out with that crew for the first Fourth Box Live. I could hang with every week, for God's sakes, because they're brilliant. He talked about doing a technology clinic instead of a service clinic in his dealerships, and he said the attendance was off the charts because they changed it to a technology-driven experience for new owners. And a lot of times what we see what's happening with the merging of the car and the phone and all the technology, we basically have $3,000 or $4,000 computers in the driver information center piece of the dashboard. But what I'm thinking of, Shannon and Cathy as well, is, you know, combining technology and some other piece, one or two other pieces, technology, fashion, and design, something along those lines, for events that would drive a deeper adaption, if you will, you know, with the market.
Well, I think what you're referring to, Sandy, there are reciprocal relationships and marketing partnerships, which
I just wasn't smart enough to say it that way, Shannon. I'm sorry.
No, listen.
That's what he's saying.
For me, though, I've got to be honest. For me, it's not having an event for women. It's having a strategic, meaningful event, period, and having men and women. You know, Cathy and I were actually talking about this earlier. We connected, and I shared with her, throughout my career, I've been invited so many times to be part of women's organizations, women in business, women entrepreneurs, women this and that. For me, it was always about camaraderie with the right, like-minded people, and not just, why would you alienate half of the population?
Agreed.
For an event, right? So you could theme it. Listen, in a dealership, we want to make women feel comfortable. We want to employ more women. I think that's really the key here, is employing more women, because you have 50% of the workforce is women overall, but less than a quarter of the workforce across the auto industry represent women. So for me, as a woman, I would feel comfortable walking into a dealer that had a solid reputation, a solid brand, smart marketing, great customer service.
Right.
Listen, I'd love to see a woman or two on the showroom floor or behind the counter or in finance when we're writing, you know, that would give me a level of comfort.
No question.
I think that brings up a great point, and I also think it addresses a comment from Squire Pettis earlier.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing that. Yep.
Yeah, I'll read it real quick. I just was on a conference call earlier where we were talking about D&I, diversity and inclusion, and the conversation came up about being in a male-dominated industry. How do we realistically break that mold so that the ladies feel and are treated more importantly, right? Specifically when it comes to things like decision-making processes, upper management. And I think, and it goes also to what Mark Giron had said, it starts with your employees and how you treat them. Staff has to come first. If the relationship in terms, or the ratio of men to women was closer to what it actually represented out in the market to begin with. Yeah.
And we'd be walking into Honda World in Louisville with Mike Corral, right? Because that's what you saw.
Correct. And he states the same thing, because then it automatically, because I think if I'm hearing you right, Shannon and Cathy, it's not about creating this woman event. It's more about when they come in, they don't feel like they're being disrespected, dismissed, and the culture is inviting. And so it has to start with our own employees and the processes we set up at the store. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I might add, when Shannon and I also spoke earlier, we both admitted that, yes, we're not these, join all of these groups,
Right.
that we actually like dealers. We like men.
Yep.
So, and when I've been interviewed in the past, people will say, "Oh, so you're a feminist because you started her certified."
Don't, Scott. Damn it.
I just wanted to say I like women, but I'm only all right. But I want to say I like my wife the most.
Oh, Jamil. Where do we go from here, Jamil? No place to go but up. Let's go.
Go ahead, Cathy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're funny. And because I can't see you, I can't be making motions.
Oh, I'll do it for you, Cathy. I'm giving him the furrowed brow right now. Like, what?
I love it. I was telling Shannon that one of my names here is Cars, Cops, and Jocks, because I've worked in the car industry. I was the first woman president of Silent Witness, which is kind of like Crime Stoppers for the police department. I worked in the wrestling industry, and I was the representative for the retired NFL of Arizona. So I know kind of how men think. I like men, and I don't find them intimidating. I think they're a bunch of pussycats, and that's why I can teach them. I can make a difference. I can raise the CSI score from women. Porsche Corporation challenged me 3 years ago and came up with how to do it.
You know, Cathy, you just touched upon something that I had firsthand experience with an outstanding automotive expert. Her name is Brenda Berg, and she's actually an employee of X Time, a Cox Automotive company. I'm not giving them a plug here. I'm just telling you who she is and where she works. She had a great company called Customer Track that worked with my dealership literally 25 years ago. And she taught us from a CSI perspective, because we had a CSI challenge. She taught us how to take care of things the right way, in an organized fashion, in a way that connected with our customers, made us more consistent in what we did. She raised our CSI score like 16 points over the course of like 90 days. And we needed her to come in to help us do that.
Do you both of you guys feel that, I guess, as an industry, people or the leaders in this industry are much more open to taking advice and listening to this compared to, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Definitely.
All right, good. What, so, and Sandy, you could probably chime in on this as well. If part of the secret to this is who we hire, what are some things that a dealership can do to be more inviting? And it might be just as simple as treat everybody the same, but to be branded as, wow, what a great place to work if you are a woman, compared to other options that they have, right? How do we get more women into the industry? Specifically, if you're a dealer, how do we get them at our stores?
It's a great question. So I see it happening already. It's been happening. It's a very positive trend that I see in the marketplace right now, where we are providing career path opportunities for men and now a lot more women, starting out in positions that are not the traditional, female role, the receptionist or the cashier. We're giving opportunities to women in tremendous ways. Service manager positions, service advisor positions. I have a BMW client that has a female technician. She's outstanding. One of the best in the entire shop. So I think that providing career path opportunities where there's an opportunity for women to grow and serve in a capacity where, I think Squire said it before, where they've got decision-making authority and capability, I think that's a great way to invite a even stronger flow of smart and intelligent and qualified women into the business to help us raise the level of performance for sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
Shannon, anything you want to add to that?
No, but I think to Sandy's point, there does need to be a strong focus on a culture, and in addition to training, just that culture that's really conducive to gender diversity. Because you can recruit talent. Now the trick is you also have to maintain them or retain them.
Fact. Fact. Employee retention. Mark Geron says it all starts with culture. He and I have had a number of conversations about employee retention, customer retention. And the truth of the matter is that if you're not effectively creating the kind of culture that people want to stay and stick around for, I call it the flypaper culture or killer culture, as I put it. And when we've got high employee retention, we are bound to see higher customer retention as well. It goes hand in hand. Michael Poro with 2 of his service advisors is women. By the way, they're better listeners. If you want to be a great service advisor, you've got to be a great listener. You've got to be able to have an empathetic tone to how you deliver information. And I see women are far better at that. They are far more detailed, far more empathetic, and are far better listeners and note takers than men tend to be. I'm stating the fact.
So let me ask you, if Shannon, I think you said 25% of the industry is women, which is obviously far lower than a lot. Let me ask you, what's stopping dealers? Why aren't dealers hiring more women right now? And either one of you can answer that.
I don't know that it's the dealer not hiring more women, or are less women applying for
Bingo.
that are available.
Yes.
That's exactly right, Shannon.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're not hiring them because they're women. What I'm saying is, in the end, why is there only 25% there?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. I think Shannon's absolutely right. We're not appealing enough. Cathy, what are your thoughts? I'm curious.
Well, the perception. And I said this to Shannon earlier, when over the years, when, my friends have been nurses, school teachers, whatever they've done, they all said, how can you work in the automotive industry? I can't stand going into a dealership. They have this preconceived notion of what it's going to be like because it's been so, horrendous over the years. And that was part of the reason that I felt that I needed to write a book to help women understand and build confidence, to be honest with you. Another thing Shannon and I said, there are certain women that they're going to be afraid to go in and buy a puppy. They're going to be intimidated. So my goal has been, and would love to, and that's why I have these events, etc., is to empower, overused word, empower women to make these decisions on their own. They don't, the original book was A Woman's Guide to Buying a Car and Don't Bring a Guy Along, but nobody liked that.
I love it.
So, they said it was way too New Yorkish. I had to soften it for the West Coast.
I knew there was a reason why I loved it.
So I do find that women are afraid to go into the business. And I will tell women all the time, it's an excellent business to go into as long as you know how to control the environment. I also find that dealers now are not old school, like when I started. They are run by larger corporations. It's not dad passing it down to the son, and they do things the way they did back then. So, for instance, many of my clients are part of Berkshire Hathaway, which is Warren Buffett took over. He changed a lot of the ways that the culture within the stores and wants to hire more and more women. I think we need to use an example. I mean, tell me how many women work in your 3 dealerships, Scott?
The total?
Well, just
I'd have to go in and look. I don't really know.
Well, see, and that's interesting. You don't know. And are they, other than, I find that, I don't know if you see this, Shannon, but I'll go into I'll do an Shannon. I'm glad you can't see me because my hands are going all over the place. I think, Shannon, that when I go into a dealership, most of the times the highest ranking woman is the controller. Interesting how you leave it all to a woman, but good, the money. It's a controller. And then from there down, there's very few in charge, very few female general managers within the Berkshire Hathaway group, within all the other large groups.
So, Cathy, one request, we have a question in the chat. What's your book title? If you could write in the chat tool.
It's right on the screen, buddy. A Woman's Guide to Buying a Car and a great pair of high heels. As a matter of fact, Scott, these look like the high heels you were wearing when we visited the Buffalo Trace Distillery. Is that about the same pair? No?
They were a little larger, I think. His size.
He was a little wobbly, and it wasn't a bourbon. Let's just put it that way.
I wear high heels whenever I visit a dealer. I don't think it's sexist at all. At my age, I'm lucky I can walk around in them still.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a part of the branding. I want people to see the seal on the door, or I do have a kiosk inside of the Lexus dealership, and Shannon said it, perception.
Yeah.
If you have so there we have a 10 by 10, and Sandy, you saw it because I sent you a media kit.
Mm-hmm.
I also recommend a staging area, and this is really important, and I hope this is a hint for dealers. If I come in to purchase a vehicle, male or female, like Shannon said, we don't care here, male or female, I come in and I say, you know what, I'm not really sure that Subaru is going to fit. You know, I've got 4 golf bags. The guys and I go out every Thursday. I don't think it's going to fit. So I have felt in the past, because I shadow salespeople, I shadow whatever I can to learn. I find that they say, you know what, I'm going to go home and I'm going to go get my golf clubs, or I don't know if it's going to work. So I say, have a staging area, have wheelchair, golf clubs, child's safety seat, all set up in a very nice area like you would stage a home. So all the salesperson has to do is go over and pick up whatever is needed, so that person doesn't leave and change their mind or go to another dealership. These are the type of things, and they're not tricks, they're just customer service conveniences. It's more than just having the right coffee and tea, and it does vary. And I don't know, Sandy and Scott, if you agree with me, but a man has complained to me year after year that he buys a Corvette every 2 years. He said, why do I have to go into a Chevy dealership and be treated like the people at Chevy when I am purchasing a vehicle 2 or 3 times more than your lease? And I said, very interesting. But then, because I know people at Hyundai and Genesis, I asked the CEO, why does someone go into a Hyundai dealership to get a Genesis? And he said, I have been trying to separate them, but I'm getting so much, problems with dealers. So this goes on further. I work with Lexus primarily, and they treat their people, baby grand piano inside, everything is high end, which you're used to, Shannon, because you work with high end manufacturers. So why should anyone be treated in a Kia store or a Chevy store any different than we would treat a customer in a Lexus store? I believe
They shouldn't.
everyone should be treated.
I agree.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. We talk about getting the quote unquote Lexus treatment, but I have non-Lexus customers that do a spectacular job in terms of the customer experience. And look, how you start that customer experience is everything, because you never get that second chance to make the first impression. The recovery is virtually impossible the way the business is today. And that means online as well. Like, the experience begins before they set foot into the dealership. And so you really got to be on your game. You've got to be paying attention to everything. And we talk about this, like website audits. Take a look at what the experience is like as a third party visiting your website, visiting your dealership, and what's the experience like. My question is always to clients, have you actually test driven your selling process, your service process? Like, have you really gone through it to see what your customers are going through? Because I think empathy is a superpower these days in any business operation, whether it's automotive or otherwise, and really understanding what your customers are experiencing will help you make better decisions about the kind of people you bring into your organization and how you actually engineer your processes, because it's got to be done from the customer's perspective.
Absolutely.
Hey, Mershawn Hargrave has a great question. She says, does the image of working bell to bell 6 days a week conflict with social pressures of family needs and does this impact the number of women applying? And Rashawn, I think you're onto something. I think that is a challenge. I don't think it's as big a challenge as it's been, but SJ, your
Well,
thoughts?
she said societal, and I knew you had struggled reading that word, so you went to social. So I just wanted to put that out. But,
Did I say social?
Yeah, you said social.
Well, listen, like Cathy Scott, I'm a high school guy. I'm just a little shot that keeps on shooting, buddy.
Rashawn is great. She's an active participant, always on D-Win. She always brings up good. She always has good questions that challenge the way people think. Well, but I think this is something, whether it's true or not. And I know there's been a lot of dealers, especially coming out of COVID, that have looked at their sales model in terms of how they schedule and their overall team and the structure. And we're starting to see a lot of that change. But the perception is reality to a lot of people. So if the perception is 6 days a week, bell to bell, is that part of the challenge dealers have and why we might be at 25%? And what do you do about it?
Great question. I think it's a big answer. I think the big answer is that there's got to be a fundamental shift at the top of the food chain in our business on the retail side. And I think, quite honestly, COVID has accelerated the option. Adam Aaron's a great example. Adam Aaron's like how many hours you're working, as long as you're producing, right? And as a dealer principal, if your basis for determining who are winners and losers in your organization, it's got to be the type of person that you are, the way you conduct yourself, and then ultimately your performance. And if you're producing at a very high rate, whether you do it in 10 hours at the dealership or 100, it's up to you. But I don't think he really cares.
No, he wants his average. He wants his 20 to 22 cars a person average, and he wants to keep growing that. And so as long as that's happening, he's not going to micromanage the time frame.
He's not clock watching.
No.
May I say?
Great point.
Yeah, go ahead, Cathy.
Social. Some of the things which will not relate to all dealers, but when Portia did ask me for my ideas on how to attract more women, one of the things I came up with, which they liked, but again, that's Portia, they have a little bit more maybe money, was if you are going to attract more women to come and work, you need to provide what they need. And if it means daycare, then that's something that you would open up at your dealership. I'm always about, I kind of go by the, Starbucks is one of my advisors, former vice president of Starbucks. When him and I chat, we talk about the customer service that's been so successful. And I look at Starbucks, I look at Amazon, I look at Ritz-Carlton, and believe it or not, I look at Wegmans, which no one on the West Coast knows what I'm talking about.
Great company, Cathy. Awesome example.
I went through their guide for employees. It's fabulous. So if we could get the culture to be more of the mentality of these number one customer service businesses that do so well, and how do they get to hire all these top people? How can you walk into an Apple store and have an Apple genius just full of energy and brain?
Killer culture, period. That's it.
Yeah.
Create a killer culture in your organization, and they're going to be beating the door down to come to work with you.
What do you guys see as some of the positive changes that dealers have made over the years when it comes to giving women what they want, creating a better culture, both to their female customers, but also their employees, or attracting the right talent?
Shannon, you have any?
I think there's a lot more training in the dealerships these days, from what I'm seeing, for management and even general staff. So I think that's a good step in the right direction. I think there is a slow adaptation to belief and need for improving upon culture. And I think that shift is really what is critical, especially now more than ever, because the industry is at a point where we need those forward-thinking, talented staff members in these dealerships to move the industry forward. And until you improve upon culture, that's just not going to happen. So I think a lot of what we spoke about today in terms of, hours and flexibility and life work balance and great branding and marketing, all of those things done, will make positive changes, and they're little steps in the right direction. But I think that culture is just key.
Yeah. I'm giving you a second for sure.
So I want to be respectful of time. I've got like all kinds of questions I could keep asking, like, what are some of the misconceptions dealers have about, giving women what they want, right? So in other words, what are some things that we're all sitting here talking about hiring better, doing what we can to attract better, making sure that not necessarily we're creating these special events specifically for women, but making sure that everyone's included and they feel fully included. There is no separation in gender. So all that's being said, what are some of the misconceptions dealers might have that are keeping that from, and I'm not saying all dealers, I'm talking about an industry as a whole that might be keeping that from actually happening?
Interesting. I'd like to turn this around to go very quickly with you. And what is it that women do not like about
There you go.
Here we go. So here's just a few, because I can't remember them all. They dislike salespeople hanging out in front of the dealership and approaching them immediately. You all know that, but that's probably not going to change. My suggestion was have a concierge, name him or her, whatever. I would suggest female. When they open the door, this person has a walkie-talkie, whatever you want to do. They come in and she assigns. I've always believed that I should be able to choose my salesperson. And women agree. So even though your up is Billy Bob, I don't want to work with Billy Bob, and I can tell you right away I don't want to work with Billy Bob. I can say to that concierge, I just thought Billy Bob was good. I could go with something else. I want to work with a young man who knows a lot about technology, because I'm going to buy that brand new Lexus and I know very little, which is obvious because you can't see my photo up here on the screen. So that is what women would like to be able to choose who they're going to work with.
Huh. It's a great point.
What's that?
I think it's a great comment.
I had a woman tell me she scored someone so low on CSI, and I brought it up on LinkedIn. She could smell cigarettes on him. It turned her off completely, and she put that down on her CSI. Lighting in the ladies' rooms. Women, men, doesn't matter. If the right lighting, and I go into the ladies' room in your dealership, Scott, and I look 15 years younger, I'm buying that car. But if you have lighting in there that's going to make me go, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend the money on Botox, forget the car, not good.
There you go.
I say,
Cathy, that's also retail 101, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it? So why don't the dealers get it? I guess you're not listening to me. Maybe that's it.
That's actually, those are interesting things, and you're right. That is some basic retail stuff, but I've never really thought about it. I know that we probably don't have any special lighting in our restrooms or facilities at the dealership. I think that's an interesting thing. I think the comment about letting them choose who they're going to work with, I haven't heard any dealership doing that. I think that's a genius idea.
Well, I will say, Cathy, I've seen this in person, and there's a GM whom we've all worked with on this call, and I've watched him, and Sandy, you know who he is, hand select as the people walk in the door which sales rep is going to take that up. And for that reason.
Yep.
And it works. It's effective.
And I'll tell you,
Pairing the personalities at that point.
you can match personalities, and it's also interesting. Women, I have found that when women go into the dealership and they don't want to maybe work with someone, they're afraid to say so. You wind up losing that sale because they don't speak up and say, oh gosh, I really don't, again, trying to build confidence in women to be able to say, you know what, I know that you're a great guy, and that's what I would prefer, working with a woman, and if that's okay with you. So there's all ways to handle it. But of course, you'd have to find a Kentucky, Scott, so that I could, work with your teams. But there are other things. The list goes on as to what women don't like, and therefore I can instruct. I can't change the way you do your process. For instance, let me bring back Berkshire Hathaway. They have a certain way you sell. There are steps to the way they sell. So when I go in and I say, I am going to teach you how men and women think differently, but you need to use some common sense. If this is, if you're taught on a 4-square and whatever, that's what you need to do. But I will say, results are, to Shannon, I can't get an ROI. So if my Lexus dealer, I will go to him and I say, okay, so have more women bought from you since I've been training? Has the CSI scores gone up? And he'll say to me, it really doesn't matter. The morale is up. And I all of a sudden have people coming to me and saying, I'm starting to actually listen to my wife when I get home. And it's helped in other areas of their life.
Pay attention, Scott.
I always listen to my wife.
But I have to tell you, we solved the mirror issue and lighting in my house. I just covered all the mirrors. I got tired looking at myself. I just covered all the mirrors up. That was it. Problem solved.
It's raised his confidence level tremendously. But I'll say this. You brought up the Ritz-Carlton, or you brought up the concierge, and one of you brought up the Ritz-Carlton earlier. And so it's funny you said with the concierge at the greeting, because one of the customer service things that Jamil always tells me about from his stays at the Ritz-Carlton, or by the way, on J&L's dime, is when he never spends his own money on Ritz. It's only the J&L credit card that he uses. But when he stays there, they will go, when you're going up either through Uber or your rental car or whatever, and you're getting your bags out, right? They introduce themselves. You walk in to check in, and all of a sudden, everybody knows your name, right? All they've done is phone that in through their little headset that you can barely see in the mic that's attached. And Mr. Joseph or Mr. in the real world, Mr. Zenez, on
this
his
sounds
way
like
into
first-hand experience to me. This doesn't sound like Jamil. This sounds like first-hand.
So, but my point being, I think similar to that's not expensive technology, and I think would go a long way, and it does make someone feel more special. And I think once again, and you guys have said this repeatedly, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. I think anybody would appreciate that type of level of service.
Sure.
And it's
right. Do you know that the Ritz-Carlton employees are given $2,000 a day to make their customers happy? So in my teaching, I say to a car salesperson, if you had $2,000 a day, how would you make your customers happy? And he said, I like $20 a day. Could you please speak my GM? But they come up with these very interesting ways that you don't need $2,000. At the Ritz-Carlton, they go out of their way. A gentleman lost his sunglasses. He got whatever he was doing. How was your day, Mr. Joseph? It was great, but I lost my sunglasses. I was snorkeling on the beach. 2 hours later, the two of their employees have gone out. They've done all kinds of diving, found his glasses, had them fixed, polished them, put them in a box, and brought it upstairs to him and said, here you go, Mr. Joseph. Here are your glasses. That's the Ritz-Carlton way of doing business.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's actually that is a true story. That happened. Jamil was the person that lost his glasses, and the only reason he actually did it was he created so much fuss and complained so much that they shut the entire beach down and sent people out there just to find these glasses, just so it would be quiet.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, what airlines did you fly to get to the beach?
There it is, the haymaker. The haymaker. Everybody's got a plan until they get hit with a haymaker, Jamil.
Mama, Papa, sister.
Listen, we're coming up on the time check, my man. So you want to bring it home, Esther, or do you want to leave it up to the professional?
I'll leave it up to you. You're a professional, man.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank Shannon and Cathy for coming on D1 today. Really appreciate the input, the insight, and the intel that you shared with us. I want to thank everybody for joining us. As always, regular crew continues to show up. Please invite your friends and colleagues, anybody you think that can either share or benefit from the experience, or both for certain, want to continue to grow the D-Win community. I want to give a huge shout out to the JNL team who executed at just a ridiculously high level 2 weeks ago with our first ever Fourth Box live event in Kentucky. I want to give a nod to both Jamil and Scott, my partners in crime, because I basically just showed up and looked fantastic doing it, and didn't really have to lift a finger. I just pretty much stood next to you guys and took all the credit.
We'll leave it at Joe. We'll leave it at showed up. I don't know about looking fantastic,
buddy. I was on my A game, brother, A game. But we had a lot of fun.
The content was fantastic, Sandy. You used the word look fantastic. So go ahead.
No, but the point is that we're planning another event Q1 of 2021, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a little bit bigger. It'll be even better. We learned a lot of great lessons, but we're looking forward to any Fourth Box attendees joining us out in I don't know where. We haven't decided on location yet, right? We're still
that's correct,
to be determined. But anyhow, one lesson I just want to leave everybody with: there's a movie called What Women Want out there. It's a comedy. It's a little bit risque, I'll tell you that, but it's with Mel Gibson and company. It's an awesome movie, and I will tell you the one takeaway from that movie that I think was consistent here as well is self-awareness and empathy go a long way in terms of figuring out what women want and men too. All right. So in the meantime, we got to get out of here. So step up to stand out, and we're out.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
All right.
Hey, listen, the Fourth Box isn't for everybody. It's only for those people that want to have fun, have a bourbon, smoke a cigar, and come up with absolutely ingenious business and brainstorming ideas.
I could do this all night long, guys.
I love to be a disruptor.
The first guy that gets that done is the winner.
You can't get any better than this. But don't worry, whatever happens in the Fourth Box stays in the box, baby.
This is some good shit. These notes are big.
All right. See you, everybody. We'll see you next time. First
SJ, were you running back to the beach, bro?
I am going back to the beach.
Who's left? Is it just the three of us?
It's just the three of us, but we're still broadcasting. So I'm going to end the broadcast, and I'll call you guys.
All right, buddy.
All right.